right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our podcast. It's so glad that you're tuned in. My name is Jeff Thiessen. It's Friday. It's the end of the work week, so turn up the volume and sit back and relax and enjoy the conversation. We have Troy Le Blanc with us here in the studio. He's the chair of the Remembrance Day services here in Estevan. He's also served as on the executive committee of the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 60, served as its president for 5 years, and he's also served as the deputy zone commander of Zone 1 and District 1 of the Royal Canadian Legion, Saskatchewan Command. He's currently, right now, he's a caretaker at the Estevan Comprehensive School. One thing that I've really known and appreciated is he's very involved in the community. He serves on various committees and boards, both locally and provincially. Troy lives in Beanfate, just outside of our great city of Estevan. So I just want to welcome you, Troy, to the studio. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
It's awesome. We're going to talk about several things. One, Remembrance Day is just right around the corner. And one of the things that I want to really highlight is we want to talk about the Remembrance Day services just so that the community is aware of where it's held and just the different aspects of it. We want to talk about some key things about the Poppy campaign as well. I think a lot of times people have questions about those types of things and what's the purpose, and I think it'd be just good just to chat about that and really highlight that aspect of too. And there's some significant dates this time around in Remembrance Day. We got the 75th anniversary of D-Day. I'd like us to talk a little bit about that because that was very significant in World War II, the turning of the events. Also, it's the 101st anniversary of the end of World War I. And so seeing that we're entering into Remembrance Week, I think it's fitting that we talk about these things. And I've always appreciated your knowledge and your passion for these things because you're a wealth of information when it comes to the history and especially military history, and it's very clear that it's a passion of yours, and so I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it very much. Let's talk a little bit about the Poppy campaign because people are seeing the poppies all around, and they're, you can pick them up at certain businesses. Let's talk about the Poppy campaign a little bit and maybe some of the purposes of it and the significance of it. I think it's important.
The Poppy campaign is split into two different parts. There's the business campaign, and then there's the what we call the bin, where you actually pick up the poppies.
Right, okay.
The business campaign is when we go out to all the businesses first and do the canvassing, and that's generally done right after Thanksgiving.
Okay, so that's the first step of things.
Step of things. And then, so we go around, we ask all the businesses if they'd like to donate, and that's where you see all the placards in the windows of the local businesses that they've supported their Poppy campaign.
Okay, gotcha, yeah.
And then about the last week of October, generally the last Monday of October, the Governor General receives their Poppy from the President of Dominion Command of the Royal Canadian Legion. And once they've received theirs, then the poppies go out to the general public.
Okay, so that happens first.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's publicized on TV, that whole event, and so that makes sense. They're the starting block of this whole Remembrance Week.
Yep. And there is actually protocol in place that it actually says it has to be on this day of this month and before any poppies can be released.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of protocol that has to go in place for all of this.
Which makes sense. If it's military, there's usually always protocol everywhere you look, and so it only makes sense.
So the Legions get them out all across Canada, generally that Monday, after the Governor General has received theirs. And you will start seeing them in local businesses. In fact, you'll have already seen them out in the local businesses.
That's right, yeah.
On the first of Monday of the month of November for the City Council, we'll have actually received theirs on the council meeting night. We're going to present them.
Okay.
So
is that a representative from the Legion that does that, or is that of the committee, or who presents them, the City Council, the poppies?
In the past, it has been myself or the president that has gone. This year, myself and Comrade Frosty, the current president of the Legion, are looking to going out and presenting the City Council with it.
That's awesome, and that happens. And what is the significance of the poppy? Let's talk a little bit about that, because I'm from a military background, and you're from a military background, and so for us it's something very natural. But let's talk about that.
The poppy itself is a symbol of remembrance and loss because of the poem by John McCrae in Flanders Fields,
Yes.
which became such empowerment of the loss that was witnessed. And it was felt by the general public when these members were coming back,
Yeah.
and was adopted as the sign of remembrance for those who paid the ultimate sacrifice fighting for their country.
And that's why when we wear that, we're doing that act of remembrance.
Showing our remembrance to those who paid and those who returned home, actually, and built their communities and made
Yes.
our country the way it is. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have what we have today. So
We have a very, very full military history as a country, even as a commonwealth, but even as a country that dates back to, World War I is when we really significantly wrote our name in the sand as a unit, as a people in battle, and that's true all through the different events, through the conflicts that we as a country and other countries have been involved in, and we have a very proud military history as a country as well. And sometimes I think in the midst of life and situations, I think it can easily be forgotten. And I think when it comes to Remembrance Week and Remembrance Day services, I really value, again, the focus that's given, because not only have we lost people in the 2 world wars and the different conflicts that we've been involved in too, and most recently, and losing soldiers to Afghanistan, and that whole idea, the face of the veteran is changing. We often associate Remembrance Day as celebrating World War I and World War II, and now that there's no longer any vets alive in World War I, it almost gives attention to World War II, but yet there's a dynamic of vets that have served in battle. In fact, our country's involvement in Afghanistan was 12 years long. That's the longest we've ever committed ourselves to an actual.
and that is one of the main things that has been the focus in the upper parts of the Royal Canadian Legion is we have to honor our past, but we also have to look after the current. And one thing that we're trying to do is make sure that people know and understand that the veterans are those who serve this country, not just from the past, but are current as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Estevan has a fair number of Afghan vets here in our city alone, and I know they're in other communities as well, in and around Estevan too. And so this week of remembrance is an opportunity for us to put our focus on those that paid the ultimate sacrifice, and pay homage to what they've given. And I think a lot of times, most people don't realize that there are those that sacrifice and pay the ultimate price, and yet their families are still here, left with that empty hole. And that's why I think it's important for us to wear a poppy and to symbolize the fact that we're not going to forget. In fact, one of the slogans in the Royal Canadian Legion is, lest we forget, lest we forget. We don't want to forget that. We want to keep that very alive. And so one of the ways that that's so significant is to actually purchase a poppy during the weeks and leading up to Remembrance Day, and to wear that poppy as a recognition that we are not going to forget.
And just a little touch on that, there's the full extent of the poem is, they shall grow not old, that we that are left grow old. Age shall not wear them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning we will remember them. And that is true today as it always was.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. That's so true. Where can they all find, I mean, most of us have seen them all around, but usually businesses and places of where people come and go, there's a little tray there, and you can see them at the desks. And
at all store facilities that allow us to use counter space, we gain permission, and we put the poppy trays out every year. There are hundreds all around the city. if you don't find a location that doesn't have any poppies in it, in the tray, just contact the branch so that we are aware of it, because we are all volunteers as well, so some of us can get a little bit sidetracked or...
Absolutely, that's good to note that as well. Yeah, I'm excited this year for the Remembrance Day. I mean, how many years has it been you've been involved in it here?
I moved here in 2005, and I've been a part of the Remembrance Day services since that day or time. But the only year I've missed was in 2007 when I moved back to Nova Scotia for a brief time, and I've been on acting chairperson since 2008. So this will actually be my 11th year as chairperson.
Again, thank you so much for highlighting that and keeping that, being involved in those things. I know you're involved in many different things, and because it's Remembrance Week, we want to highlight the fact that it's Remembrance, and we want to talk about the Remembrance Day services as well. That it's been very significant that the comprehensive schools always given us the opportunity to use the facility. The interesting thing about Remembrance Day is, I mean, it's something that happens in all the communities all around this country, from coast to coast, from coast, and sometimes the communities are very small, but there's always an aspect of a Remembrance Day service in all of the communities in and around our country, which is exciting.
And most of them are led by legions all across Canada.
Yes.
Though the legion numbers may be dwindling, there are still some of the areas that they keep their branch open and have one meeting a year. And that one meeting a year is on Remembrance Day.
Yes.
And their whole purpose is for Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
Even our little towns of North Portal have their service on Remembrance Day. So they're all across the southeast. There are Remembrance Day services on the 11th.
11th hour, the 11th day.
1918, when the guns fell silent.
And there was, the whole purpose was to not have that ever happen again. And the reality is it's been happening over and over and over again. And the act of remembrance is to keep remembering those people that have made that sacrifice. Let's talk about the Remembrance Day service here a little bit. That's at the school. There's been some changes in the last couple of years. Let's talk about that and some of the bonuses and the benefits of that.
The first big change is, for many years we've held the service in a split service, as it were. So we would have the first half, or the presentation half, up in the cafetorium, and that would be where we had either a guest speaker or the presentation, like we've held for a few years, the video presentation of all of our veterans. Then we would march off our dignitaries, and then go downstairs to the courtyard and have the second half of the service, which would be the cenotaph service, where we lay the wreaths. Last year, marking our 100th anniversary since the end of the First World War, we wanted to do something special. And so we made arrangements with the comprehensive school to move everything into one location, and that's in the gymnasium. And that was so well received that we're doing it again this year. Again, it makes it easier because it's one march on, one march off. So one march on, one march off. It makes it a lot easier organizing because they don't have to worry about...
Oh, for sure, because it has been... I've been a part of it the last 7 years, and it's been chaotic all the time, because it's like you do one here, and now the next program starts over there. And so I found it a great improvement that we could all have at one spot. So I'm glad that they're doing that again this year.
The greatest way I can put it is it's like organizing cats. They all have a mind of their own, and it all kind of gets everything just scattered, but it comes together just before they walk through the doors.
Yeah.
So, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, that's right. So, and another thing too, everybody stays in one room and no shifting and stuff. So what's on the schedule for the 11th?
On November 11th, we want to have everybody there by 10:30. We've been telling our dignitaries, of course, earlier, just so we can get them lined up and organized. Yep. The one thing to remind everybody this year, fill the bleachers first. The seats on the floor are primarily for our dignitaries and veterans. But that doesn't mean that they're not open for the public. But we want to fill the bleachers first, and then we'll go into the rows on the floor.
Mm-hmm. You betcha. What else is there going to be happening this year? Because there's been a few changes made over the last number of years, and so
the two ones we're going to be doing this year, we're doing both a guest speaker.
Yes.
Who will be Captain Craig Bird, again, of the 2901 Princess Patricia's Light Infantry Army Cadets here in Estevan. He will be presenting on behalf of the Southeast Military Museum, which I'm also a member of that committee. And we will be having some exciting news, but I'll bring that up here in a few minutes.
Yep.
And then we will also be having our photo presentation of the veterans again. This is actually going to be coming... So when you're walking in to the service on the 11th, it will be on a constant loop until we're ready to actually go underway with the service. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of question as to why it wasn't on last year, and we said, well, we had to break it up. We've been doing it for a number of years now, and to have a guest speaker, and they liked having the guest speaker, but they also liked the presentation. So that's one positive note, because at least then the family members get to see their family member who served this community up on the wall. So that is one big thing. We're trying to get a few other little things for the displays up, but everything will be right in the gymnasium. Mm-hmm. The crosses of the 100 and...
I thought it was a very nice touch last year.
And a lot of people don't actually understand how many crosses there were and why there were.
So why don't you talk about that a little bit? So
those crosses, and I can't remember the exact number now, it was 150, 75 and 75. Those are to represent the 150 names of the First World War veterans who paid the ultimate sacrifice and are named on the cenotaph. Mm-hmm. And so that is why there was 150 150 crosses with the poppy in front of them, to represent them directly. Mm-hmm. So we will be having them back up again this year.
That's good. I thought that was just a neat touch, because that's something I haven't seen in Remembrance Day parades that I've been involved in or I participated in, and I just thought that was a neat backdrop to everything.
Yes. And the other thing that a lot of people noticed is when I was reciting in Flanders Fields that nobody thought was going to happen and were quite surprised at, was not only were we symbolically, but we actually emblematically passed the torch. We had our comrade Jim Spence, who is one of our last remaining World War II veterans in Estevan, actually stand, pick up the torch, and hand it to a member, I believe it's Master Warrant Officer now, Goodmanson, to receive the torch of 2901 Princess Patricia's Light Infantry. So it was World War II veteran passing on the torch to our new generations. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people really enjoyed that symbolism.
Yeah.
So, and it put a little bit more emphasis on the meaning of the passing of the torch other than that, going back to the previous part is Captain Craig Bird's presentation. We'll be discussing World War I and World War II again, and also the exciting news of the introduction to the Southeast Military Museum, which will be held at both a location just northeast of town, as well as at the Royal Canadian Legion. And its unveiling will be on November the 11th, right after the service. So,
and there's usually always an invitation the Legion gives to the public to be able to go down to the Legion and give a small donation, I think what it is, for the food and
it's an honorarium, and all the proceeds go into the Poppy Fund as well, and to help our veterans who in the program of Leave the Streets Behind or Pause for Vets. That's
one of the things that the Poppy campaign, like when people are asked to give donations for the Poppy, it not only helps fund the purchasing of the poppies, but it also provides opportunity where the Legion can reach out to the vets that are here and needing help and assistance and different things like that.
The one thing with the Poppy campaign that a lot of people may not know is the Poppy campaign is 100% charitable. We don't take anything for operating funds. We can't do anything like that. The only thing we'd have is for expenditures of the poppies, the wreaths, supplies. We put all of the money into it, allocating for trusts, so it goes into scholarships. It can go into assistant facilities such as the regional nursing home, where we donated a chair for Alzheimer's patients before, as well as overbed tables. All of these things are proceeds we take out of the Poppy Fund to help our veterans and the local community. In the past, I believe they've also made donations to Smile Services for the buses over the years, again, through the Poppy campaign. So without the Poppy campaign, we wouldn't be able to continue providing these services that we do. It's
important to understand that and really get behind that aspect of it, because it does more than just provide a poppy for people. The funds go much greater, much deeper in different areas of our community and the surrounding community that affects veterans and anything to that aspect.
And everything that is donated is so much appreciated.
Yes.
I believe this year the branch made a major donation to Command in regards to their two major funds, which are, or not funds, but programs through our Poppy campaign, which was Leave the Streets Behind and Pause for Vets, which I full-heartedly believe in both of those programs.
No Streets Behind, that is, so no vet is let...
Leave the Streets Behind is a program that was started a number of years ago now in regards to our veterans that are homeless. We have so many things that we do right as Canadians and such, but one thing that we've stumbled across and stumbled on is when our vets come home from being servicemen and they're not given the proper help or things they need when they're leaving the service, and they fall on hard times and they're left homeless. And there have been numerous advancements to remove this problem, and I'm thankful that places like Medicine Hat, they've actually started small communities. They're called micro communities and such, specifically for veterans, and it's for Leave the Streets Behind. And again, this is one of our stumbling blocks, and it's a hard subject to discuss.
Yes, absolutely.
Again, anyone who has served our great nation should never have to come home to no home.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. So no Streets Behind, and the other one is?
Pause for Veterans.
Okay, talk about just that a little bit.
Yeah. Pause for Veterans is specifically for veterans who have post-traumatic stress disorder, which unfortunately there is a lot more than we care to admit. Pause for Vets helps our veterans by signing them getting them in touch with a community that helps with dogs and getting them service dogs or animals to help them with their post-traumatic stress disorder. So,
yes.
And again, the PTSD has been so widely spread with everything that our service people are seeing overseas, that this program is a good program to have. So,
absolutely, and it's important for us to talk about that as well. So that's great. That's wonderful. So when does the service start? What time?
10:30.
10:30 on the nose.
10:45 is when everybody should be through the doors.
Okay.
But 10:30 we want everybody kind of to be there.
Okay, awesome. And so It's a comprehensive high school. There's lots of parking. Come early.
Yep.
And we want to invite the community to come out and support the Remembrance Day service. It's been great. As long as I've been a part of it, it's great to see a lot of people show up, and so we want to encourage you, if you can put that on your to-do list, that would be awesome. We would love for you to be a part of the service here in Estevan, and so 10:30, and we have the service, and various people involved that we talked about before, and then when it ends, we invite the public to go to the Royal Legion to give a donation for a meal and just hang out in the Legion, and that's the time where there's going to be some unveiling of the
right after lunch will be the unveiling of the new Southeast Military.
So it'd be great to have the
Museum.
community out for that too as well. That's a unique thing. That's a very brand new thing. Yeah, there's a lot of things that people can look at and participate in, and I think it's pretty cool that we have it in our community here, and so it's available for people to watch, look, and enjoy some of the history that we have here in our town and our city.
This is definitely Captain Bird's pet project.
Yes,
and very much worthwhile.
Yeah, passion and the stuff that's been collected and the energy and the time put in. Yeah, it's very significant and very, 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 very neat. You betcha. We just towards the end of our talk here, it's the 75th anniversary of D-Day.
Correct.
75 years is when the tides of the World War II began to change on the Allied forces as they gathered together in unprecedented numbers.
The most strategic operation in the history of mankind.
It's phenomenal. Just to get a little bit of an understanding of the magnitude of it, there was over 7,000 ships. We're not talking landing crafts or anything like that. We're just talking ships. I mean, that's incredible.
There was tales from veterans at the time that were in the area that said you could almost walk from the White Cliffs of Dover to the shores of Dieppe and France because there was so much steel in the water.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And it's 75 years.
Yes.
75 years.
A momentous occasion and another milestone.
Are we going to highlight that a little bit at the Remembrance Day service and acknowledge that? Or
there will be some acknowledgments,
okay, cool.
As we normally do. Always make sure that the milestone years are in touch, and I believe that may be part of the presentation as well. So
awesome.
I don't know. I don't want to overstep and not allow our guest speaker to have some surprises up his sleeve.
Absolutely, that's right. And then not only that, but it's the 101st anniversary of the end of World War I.
And the whole purpose of how Remembrance Day even started.
Absolutely, that's the reason why we continue every year, November 11th, meet together in our communities across our country and celebrate and remember those that made the sacrifice. And so, again, I want to encourage everyone, if you have not been to a service, I would encourage you, grab your kids. You know, I think it'd be great to go as a family and grab your kids and come along, and it's about an hour service or so.
Generally, we keep it into the hour and a half mark. We haven't had guest speakers predominantly in the last few number of years, simply for time constraints. Because though you give some people time limit, they don't stay in that time limit.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
But thankfully, we haven't had that issue. But again, about an hour and a half, and it is worthwhile to see those parts of history that are directly linked to our community as well.
Absolutely, because the military was made up of people
from everywhere.
From everywhere, from small towns to big cities to country folk to all that kind of stuff, and that's November 11th and unites us all.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people around this community do remember, but not a lot of the new folks coming in realize that this area had a fairly large military presence at one time with the South Saskatchewan Regiment, which did hold a lot of ground during World War II. Definitely had a few significant encounters that, again, I'm not going to spoil for anyone that may
Yes.
be seeing the presentation from Captain Bird.
That way
So,
you want to come out and see the presentation. It's a teaser,
Yeah.
a little bit of a teaser. My grandfather served in the South Saskatchewan Regiment.
Yeah.
And one of the neat thing was for me was to go through the process to get his military records released and his medals and different things, and to be able to have the opportunity to see his application that he filled out in 1943 when he was 19 years old.
Yeah.
43. Yes, he went in April or May of 1943. He filled an application to join, and he went off for his training, and then he went overseas, and
Right
he
in the
was
height of
released. Yeah, right in the height of it, and it was neat because to get his medals brought back and to resurrect a part of a history that the family doesn't know a lot about, because my grandfather never talked about the war.
Yeah.
And that was something that he put in his back burner shelf, and it wasn't until I joined the military and before I went away from my training that I got to talk to my grandfather. He was still alive then, and I remember my dad saying, "Man, you're getting more information out of him than I've ever have, and I lived with him for all these years, and it was maybe that."
The military connection.
Yes,
that so
and-
many
And
don't
so then I
realize.
began to get stories. But now that I've received his military records and places that he went and the regiments he was in and all those different things, I have a whole list of other questions that I love to ask him.
Yeah.
And unfortunately I can't. And that's part of history that we want to hang on. We want to keep these stories alive because they're significant. Because
Yeah.
my grandfather, he too, been all over Europe and Germany and France and different things like that. And so that's part of my history
Yeah.
as my family. And so I want to keep that alive as well. And so, very significant stuff like that. So South Saskatchewan Regiment, yeah, very much.
And when you walk into the Estevan Comprehensive School, a lot of people don't realize, because they just think they're just a bunch of old flags up on the wall. They don't realize the significance. Those are actually the Saskatchewan Regiment's colors.
Yes.
All those names that are on the one color are the battles that the South Saskatchewan were represented in. There's quite a few on that flag.
Mm-hmm.
And those colors were presented to the South Saskatchewan Regiment by His Majesty King George VI himself, with Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, back in, I believe it was 1943. I could be wrong on that one. But it was overseas at the... and there's actually a picture of that presentation right at the Royal Canadian Legion
Yes.
branch. So...
And for those that don't know, to take a visit, the Legion is open for the public to come and to visit, and there's pictures of veterans, there's memorabilia, there's things all throughout the Legion that you can just go in and take a look and familiar yourself with what the history that Estevan itself has as far as its military and those that served and paid the ultimate sacrifice. And so
And there's some people there generally daily from 9 to noon.
right. So yeah, I would encourage our listeners to take the time just to see and familiarize themselves with what we all have and what the Legion can offer and that type of stuff. So thank you so much for these moments that we had here just to talk about Remembrance Day again, 10:30 at Comprehensive High School on the 11th. And we want to encourage everyone just to fill those stands and fill those chairs and really give remembrance its due diligence to keep in mind. We enjoy our freedoms because so many people sacrificed and served so that we can enjoy the very things that we have. So I just want to say thank you so much to our listeners today for listening to the podcast. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, we would encourage you to grab that and hit that button to subscribe for fresh new podcasts that come up all the time. Like us on Facebook. If there's something that you want to hear on this program, we encourage you to let us know in the comment section. And it is our purpose to connect with the community and provide programming that is helpful and that you want to listen to. So thanks again, and we will see you next week.